Good evening. This is Steve Lionel, Vice Chair of the City of Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment, and this is the November 24th, 2020 Zoning Board meeting. I'm filling in for Mary Ellen McKay, the Chair, who cannot be with us this evening. As Vice Chair of the Zoning Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Sununu as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized to meet electronically pursuant to the Governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are video conferencing using Zoom through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. Public access to this meeting is also provided via Zoom, and a link to the meeting is contained in the meeting agenda available on the city's website. The meeting can be streamed through the city's website, nashuanh.gov/318/CTV on Nashua's community link, and the public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings and, where applicable, notice to abutters. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or Channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. The chair, or the vice chair in this case, is in control of the meeting. To the extent practicable and advisable, the board will follow the procedures as identified in its bylaws. The applicant will present the applicant's case, followed by questions by the board. We will allow for a rebuttal period as best as possible for persons wishing to speak in favor or with questions or opposition before the board deliberates and determines an outcome. Normally, the board utilizes a light timer, which will not be available. However, the board and all participants should endeavor to comply with the timeframes of 15 minutes maximum for the applicant and 5 minutes each for anyone wishing to speak in favor or in opposition or with questions. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals required to appear before the board are appearing remotely and are not required to be physically present. Applicants, their representatives, and individuals required to appear before the board may contact the planning department to arrange an alternative means of real-time participation if you are unable to use Zoom. Documentary exhibits and/or visual presentations were submitted in advance of the meeting so that they may be displayed for remote access viewing. Real-time public comment can be addressed via video to the board using Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. Real-time comments via audio will be addressed at the conclusion of the public hearing. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or question to the board utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. The public is also encouraged to submit their comments via email to the planning department at planning@nashuanh.gov or by mail. Please be sure to include your name, address, and comments. Letters should be addressed to the Planning Department, P.O. Box 2019, Nashua, New Hampshire 03061. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Zoning board meetings will be held electronically until it has been deemed safe to conduct more typical meetings at City Hall. The Zoning Board, the Planning Department, and city staff thanks you for your understanding and patience during this difficult time. I ask that everyone participating please mute their microphone if possible until you wish to speak. If you are using the Zoom application, you can indicate that you would like to speak by clicking the raise hand button visible in the participants tab. You will be called on in turn. Please be sure to click lower hand when you are done speaking. In addition to board members, we have city staff members. We have Mr. Carter Falk, Deputy Planning Manager, and Ms. Kate Poirier, Zoning Coordinator. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Mr. Falk, would you please take attendance?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Steve Lionel.
Present, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Jack Courier.
Jack Courier is present, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Rob Shaw,
Present and no one is in the room with me.
JP Boucher,
I'm present and there's nobody in the room with me.
Damon Kara,
Present, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Estathia Boris,
Present, and I just have two little doggies here in case they bark. Sorry.
Thank you,
Uh,
Mr. Falk. Are there any
and-
changes to the agenda?
Yes, there is, Mr. Chair. We had scheduled for tonight a case at 49 Buck Meadow. That will not be held tonight or heard tonight. It will be re-advertised and will go on the December 8th meeting instead. So that will not be on tonight. The other three cases as scheduled will be heard.
Okay, thank you. We have 4 regular members of the board present, myself, Mr. Courier, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Boucher, and we have 2 alternates present, Ms. Boras and Mr. Mankara. The way we're going to do it is one of those alternates will be voting in each case, and we're going to start with Ms. Boras in the first case, and then alternating, Mr. Mankara will do the second case and Ms. Boras will do the third case. During the deliberations, any of the alternates may join in and ask questions and engage in the conversation, but only one of the alternates will be voting tonight. Let's see. I think that's it. Have I forgotten anything? This is only the second time I've done this. Don't think so.
I think
Okay.
it's all good.
Okay, so we will now read, I will read the first case into the record. Description is Fernand and Nicole Poulin, owners at 2123 Daytona Street, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed maximum 24-foot driveway width, 28 feet proposed, to repave existing driveway with same dimensions. This is in the RB Zone Ward 4. Is there someone here to present this case?
Mr. Chairman, I see a Fern Poulin name with a microphone off, so
Hand is
Fern,
raised.
there we go.
Okay, I see Fern Poulin and I see a Mike Poulin. Would one of you like to?
So hi, we're Fern Poulin
Hi,
here.
I'm Fern.
Yeah, okay.
So
Go
what
ahead.
So all he wants to say is that all he's asking for is to have the same driveway paved over again.
So this is an existing driveway that is in excess of the 24-foot
Yes,
that's specified in the ordinance.
yes. So he's not adding anything. He just would like the same driveway repaved.
Okay,
Thank you.
is there anybody present who would like to speak in favor of this request?
Lexi, how do I raise my hand?
Well, since you're, you can either raise your hand if you are using the Zoom app, or you can simply speak up at this point because we don't have too many people on. So if you wish to speak, that's Carol. I did forget something, which is that Ms. Poulin, if you would please just state your name and address for the record. I forgot to ask you to do that.
She hung up.
Home address. My home address is 9 Charmaine Road. Where I want the
I was asking
driveway.
Fern
No,
Poulin.
So the other person that was speaking is Alicia Brown.
That's my granddaughter.
Alicia. Okay, and your address, Ms. Brown?
175 Searles Road.
I see. So you were talking on behalf of the owner.
Yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so Carol, would you please, if you want to speak in favor of this, please give your full name and your address.
I'm Carol Ivory and I live on 12 Daytona Street.
And I am in favor of it because it just is going to make a better appeal in the neighborhood for the Nashua community.
Thank you. Is there anybody else present who would like to speak in favor of the request? Seeing none. Is there anybody present who would like, who has questions, opposition, or concerns about the request? Oh, Mr. Courier wants to say something. He needs to unmute.
Hello. Yeah, I was just wondering how long the existing driveway has been excuse me, paved in the current state that it's in.
Yes, I forgot to leave time for questions for the applicant.
Yeah,
This
no
is my
problem.
first time.
Just with Cynthia, free rash tinting. Yeah, that's just gonna be with Cynthia. I think that's it.
The driveway was there before I bought the
So-
house,
so-
and I bought the house in 1991.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify, is the driveway 28 feet all the way back, or is it wider? Is there a skirt that's currently factored into that width? And I didn't know, maybe that's a question for Mr. Falk, excuse me, or for you, Mr. Poland. If you know, I'd like to, curious as to what that driveway width is. It looks like there's a skirt on the front, and I didn't know if that was part of the 28 feet or not.
That's 28 feet out the way.
Okay, so, all right, thank you.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to speak with questions, concern, or opposition to the application?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no hands raised and no messages in chat.
Thank you, Kate. In that case, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Boucher, your comments?
It's pretty straightforward to me. It's just repaving existing driveway. The applicant has testified it's been there since 1991. To me, there's really nothing that I can say that would not have me vote for this in a positive manner. So I'm in favor of the application.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Courier, your comments?
Like Mr. Boucher, you know, the fact that it's been this existing width for such a long time, part of the neighborhood, I think is, you know, a worthy or unique condition that, you know, has merit. You know, it would be, I think, you know, it's just seems to work fine with the property. Nobody has any issues with it. I was certainly keeping an open ear if there were any issues, like maybe the wider driveway is resulting in too much use of the land, but I'm not hearing that. So I'm good with it as it's proposed.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw.
Likewise, I'm in support for similar reasons. I also think that the extra 4 feet actually looks like it provides the ability to park 3 cars wide in the driveway, whereas 24-foot wide would be much tighter and maybe not so practical. So with again, the long history and that part of things, I think it's reasonable to continue using the driveway with the large width.
Thank you. Mr. Mancara.
Yeah, I concur and I would support the application.
Okay. And Ms. Boras?
I also concur and I support the application as submitted.
And I do also. Would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Boucher, thank you.
Make a motion to approve the area variance for Ferdinand and Nicole Poulan, owners of 21 to 23 Daytona Street, sheet 130, lot 3, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed the maximum 24-foot driveway width, 28 feet proposed, to repave an existing driveway with the same dimensions to the RB zone in Ward 4. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Again, this is a pre-existing driveway since 1991 that has worked, I guess, well, or it's been existing in the neighborhood for many years. We find that it is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We find it will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. We find that it's not contrary to public interest. And we find that substantial justice would be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote? Oh, excuse me. I need to ask for a second.
Yeah, I did raise my hand.
Okay.
To second.
Yeah, Rob raised his hand, but
Yeah. Okay, yep.
I didn't get off mute.
I'll get the hang of this eventually.
you're doing great.
Okay, okay, so we got a second from Mr. Shaw. So Mr. Courier, you voted in favor?
Mr. Gardner, you're muted still.
Jack, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Unmute. Mr. Courier votes in favor. I was busy typing up those notes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Okay, I vote in favor, and let's see, Mr. Mancara, how do you vote? Or
I didn't think this was my vote.
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. I did say it was Ms. Boras's turn this time. Okay, Ms. Boras, how do you vote?
I'm in favor also.
Okay, and I'm also in favor, so that's unanimous. Mr. Pullen, your variance was granted. There is a 30-day window of appeal in case somebody wants to object. So I would caution you not to do any work until that 30-day window has passed. But otherwise, congratulations, your variance was passed.
Thank you.
Okay. Second case. Description is Carol Ivory, 12 to 14 Daytona Street. Same. Not common that we get two on the same street right next to each other. Requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed maximum driveway width 24 feet permitted, 25 feet existing, 27 feet proposed. This is the RB Zone Ward 4. So is there someone here who would like to present for this case?
Yes, I'm Carol Ivory, live on 12 Daytona Street. We've owned this property since 1988. The driveway was existing before when we bought the property, and I would just like to extend it a little bit wider in order to, make better parking for my tenants and ourselves, and just, for the upkeep of the property as well.
Thank you. I am looking at this diagram. It looks like you're going to add the 2 feet on the side that's closer to the house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Let's see.
So if you look at the bottom flare, it like really flares out at the bottom. So I don't believe that I need that much of a flare. So I was just kind of like going to go with that. See how this huge flare.
I see. Okay. Are there board members who have a question? Mr. Courier?
Yeah, the current driveway is, let's see, 25 feet. And is that measured back from the flare? Is it 25 feet wide, say like 10 or 15 feet back from the street?
Yes, it is.
And then if you're saying that the proposed 27 would be like at the, maybe the tip, so to speak, of the right side flare going back? Is that what your proposal is?
Yes, when you're saying the right side, you're saying the side closest to the house, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I think I'm all set at the moment.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes, Ms. Ivory, the section that you're going to widen, are you just going to pave that area, or are you thinking about repaving the whole driveway while you do this?
I'd like to repave the whole driveway because I think that would be, just to do that side would be patchwork. And I don't think that it would be as nice of an appeal, curb appeal.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Falk.
Yes.
Mr. Falk, I think you're aware of it, and I was looking at the GIS. So the fact that the driveway appears to be on the neighbor's property, are we in jeopardy of anything, or does it really not matter in this case?
I don't think it really matters because a majority of the driveway is on the subject property. So it'll be paved further into their yard and not the neighbor's yard. So the neighbors, I guess if Kate could share the screen, the part of the driveway on the neighbors, that'll just stay the same. They won't go any further into there is my understanding. So it'll just be a little bit closer towards the house. So it shouldn't have any impact on the neighbors. It'll be an existing condition and it'll stay the
So
same.
It's not an exaggeration of anything. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Any other board members with questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody present who would like to speak in favor of this application?
Mr. Chair, I am seeing no hands raised or messages in chat.
Thank you. Is there anybody present with questions, concern, or opposition to the application?
Mr. Chair, I am seeing one hand raised for Mr. Poulin.
Okay, Mr. Poulin, please go ahead and speak. Give your name and address, please, for the record.
My home address, that's 9 Carmine Road.
And what he wants to say is he's in favor of this because it brings more curb appeal to the neighborhood when they're not going to be parking on the grass.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else with questions, concern, or opposition? Or in favor? Seeing none. Okay, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Shaw, your comments, please.
I think this is a reasonable request. I don't think it's going to be a dramatic change. There's already, as the applicant noted, that flare that exists at the street. So I think this little bit of addition to the driveway will not be a concern.
Thank you. Mr. Courier, you had a
I
comment?
just wanted to clarify first, just to make it clear that it'll be Mr. Minkara voting on this.
Mr. Minkara will be voting on this, but everybody gets to talk.
Great. So if you're looking for my comment, yeah, I feel I'm in support of this. It is being proposed and would be done if approved on the applicant's side of the driveway. And so I think it makes sense, given the size of the lot, et cetera, and the number of vehicles which is historically parked on it. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher, your comments.
I'm in favor for the reasons that my fellow board members have already spoken about.
Ms. Boras, your comments.
I'm also in favor for all the same reasons my colleagues mentioned.
And Mr. Minkara, your comments?
And I'm also in favor for the reasons that have been mentioned.
And I am also in favor for the reasons mentioned. Would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Boucher, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the area variance for Carol Ivory, owner of 12 to 14 Daytona Street, sheet 130, lot 18, requesting a variance from Land Use Code section 190-192, section C, to exceed maximum driveway width 24 feet permitted, 25 feet existing, 27 feet proposed. It's in the RB Zone Ward 4. Variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property and the benefits sought by the applicant to not be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Again, we spoke about the fact that there is a somewhat of a dramatic flare on the right side of the driveway facing the house, and all she's doing is adding, just going straight back from that flare. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
Do we have a second? Mr. Shaw, thank you for the second. Okay, let's see. And Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Mancara, how do you vote?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
And I also vote in favor. So that's unanimous again. And Ms. Ivory, your variance has been granted. Again, there are 30 days that somebody could file an appeal to the city planning board. So I would recommend that you wait until that 30 days passes before commencing any work. Otherwise, congratulations, your variance has been granted.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Third case. Kenneth, Timothy, Jeffrey, and Kevin Forrance, owners, 3 and 9 Fifth Street, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3. First, for proposed lot 87-309-1, for minimum lot area, 6,000 square feet required, 5,200 square feet proposed. And 2, for minimum land area for a proposed 2-family dwelling, 12,444 square feet required, 5,200 square feet proposed. 3, for a proposed lot 87-309-2, minimum land area for a proposed 2-family dwelling, 12,444 square feet required, 6,000 square feet proposed. And 4, for proposed lot 87-309-3, excuse me, minimum land area for a proposed 2-family dwelling, 12,444 square feet required, 6,000 square feet proposed. All requests to combine existing lots 87-309 and 87-310 and re-subdivide into 4 lots, with lot 87-310 remaining as a conforming single-family detached dwelling. This is in the RB Zone Ward 4. Is there somebody here who would like to present this case?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Brad Westgate. I'm a lawyer with Weiner Bennett at 111 Concord Street in Nashua, and I represent the Forrances. And I thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. Thank you, Kate. There are 2 properties involved, as the chair noted in reading the agenda item. One is lot 87-309 and the other lot 87-310. They're blocked out in red on this extract from the GIS map, just to give you a sense of the immediate neighborhood. These properties are 3 Fifth Street and 9 Fifth Street. 3 Fifth Street is the vacant lot on the top. 9 Fifth Street is the single-family home with garage on the lower half. The properties are in the RB district and serviced by city water and sewer, as well as electric power, telecommunications, natural gas service. The upper lot, 3 Fifth Street, the vacant parcel, contains 12,800 square feet, and the lower parcel, 10,400 square feet, for about 23,200 square feet or 0.53 acres. Of course, the property is located off Ledge Street on 5th Street in a in-town neighborhood, pretty densely developed, long-standing homes. It's worth noting the existing properties around these properties, Mr. Chair. As you can see on 5th Street, across the street, there are 5 2-family dwellings, as well as a 1-family dwelling at the very southerly end of 5th Street. The dwellings in the 5 2-family dwellings occupy just a little bit more of a land area as these proposed properties do. On the opposite side, to the rear of the subject property, is 3 properties on 4th Street, a 2-family, a multifamily with 6 units in the middle, and then another 2-family on the southerly end. Again, a similar land mass as what's involved in these properties. So the Florence has proposed to consolidate and then re-subdivide the properties in accordance with a subdivision plan that we can show in a moment. Sorry, it's on the vertical there. Thank you very much. So what you can see is a re-subdivision of the properties. Again, Ledge Street is to the left of the plan, so south is to the right. The lot to the furthest to the south would be the single-family home that Mr. Falk noted in his administrative decisions would constitute a conforming single-family lot that needs no variances. The other three parcels, the proposed duplex lots, the one in the corner lot, Ledge and Fifth Street, is the one that's 5,200 square feet. The two in the middle meet the minimum lot area requirement of 6,000 square feet. But of course, the primary point for tonight's meeting pertains to density. In the RB district, the density requirement is 7 units per acre maximum. And what we're proposing is 3 duplexes and 1 single family home over this 0.53 acres land. The 12,444 square foot number that you see in the applications effectively is 1 acre divided by 7. So the variance, rather than being cast as a certain amount of units over the 0.53 acres, was cast as duplex units on 3 of the particular lots, hence the breaking down into 3 specific variance components. The proposed units would be, again, duplexes built slab on grade. And Kate, if you could go to the elevation drawing just for a moment. That may need to twist a little bit. So that's the conceptual idea of the 2-story duplexes. Again, garage, slab on grade, left and right sides, as you can see. Single family home would remain as noted. The existing garage for that single family home would be raised. So the 3 lots that would constitute the duplex lots would be vacant pre-construction. Mr. Chairman, we would respectfully submit that these 3 duplexes proposed are compatible with the neighborhood and consistent with the density immediately surrounding the properties, both in the other side of Fifth Street as well as the abutting properties to the rear on 4th Street. As I mentioned, on Fifth Street across the street, there are a total of 5 duplex homes over 6 parcels. That's a 10 units in all, on a relatively comparable acreage as what we have proposed. On the rear on 4th Street, there are 3 properties with a total of 10 units. Again, a similar type of density, similar land mass involved both in our properties as well as the ones on 4th Street, as you can again see. So we take a further look at that. We get a sense of the nature of the neighborhood and the density involved. We've annotated this particular GIS extract just to give you a sense of the types of units that are in this immediate area. By the way, of course, as I'm sure you all know, this part of Ledge Street is very close to Ledge Street School. Across Ledge Street and just further to the west is the baseball fields, the basketball court, and playground area. Other than the area variance we're seeking for the corner lot, 5,200 square feet instead of 6,000 square feet, and the density variance, of course, there are no setback variances sought or no other dimensional variances sought. So the plan is to build these units in a way that complies with all the other dimensional requirements in the land use code, setbacks, open space area, and the like. If I may, Mr. Chair, go to the 5 criteria for the granting of a variance. The first, of course, is that the granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. We would respectfully submit that it's not contrary to the public interest to allow a two-family dwelling on a corner lot with approximately 800 square feet less than the minimum 6,000 square foot requirement, or allow a total of 7 units on approximately 0.53 acres over 4 lots, where the city's land use code encourages infill development, and where this variance would permit good quality and new residential development in an inner city neighborhood where the density of the adjoining properties across 5th Street and to the rear on 4th Street is quite compatible with that proposed by the applicants. Again, as mentioned, section 190-16 of the land use code in its purposes provision expressly encourages infill development. Of course, as the board well knows, infill development doesn't need additional infrastructure and doesn't require extensions of city services to any great degree as new development does, reduces sprawl, minimizes additional city costs for maintaining new infrastructure. And also development and infill development shows a vitality in the neighborhoods that are involved. We think, in fact, it's in the public interest to allow the construction of new two-family homes of quality nature in a inner city, densely developed neighborhood that's not incompatible with the density of that very neighborhood. Second criteria, of course, is that the proposed use observe the spirit of the ordinance. We always look, I think, to the purposes of the ordinance to get a sense of its spirit. And again, as mentioned, infill development is contemplated, encouraged. The city's older in-town neighborhoods are the ideal locations for infill development, and this is a perfect example of that, both in terms of the location, the in-town nature of the neighborhood, but also the compatibility of the proposed housing itself. With respect to the corner lot that is 5,200 square feet proposed, again, it does need a variance from the 6,000 square foot minimum requirement. But being a corner lot, it has its own unique characteristics. Corner lots don't have a rear yard setback requirement. They have 2 side yard setback requirements. So it turns out when you take a look at the proposed layout for the duplexes on this site, the corner lot has a building envelope that's almost exactly the same size as the 2 interior lots do for building envelope because of the side yard setbacks versus the rear yard setback. There's only about a 1% difference in building envelope between the corner lot and the 2 interior 6,000 square foot lots. So the purpose of the land use code to provide adequate building area in the context of lot size, we don't believe is frustrated by the nature of this particular corner lot compared to the interior lots building envelopes. Third criteria is that substantial justice be done. We would submit that substantial justice is done, permitting 3 two-family dwellings in an existing densely developed neighborhood on infill lots. When doing so, permits construction of new, good, affordable housing units in this neighborhood, but at the same time meeting the purposes of the particular provisions in the land use code. The board's well aware that the New Hampshire Supreme Court basically says that substantial justice is done if the general public realizes no appreciable gain from the denial of the variance, but the applicant is adversely affected in a material manner if the variance is denied. In this case, we would respectfully state that the general public realizes no appreciable gain if the variance is denied. Denial only precludes the construction of affordable two-family homes in this neighborhood, which contains numerous two-family dwellings. On the other hand, if the variance is granted, there's no harm done to the public. In fact, there's probably a benefit to the community at large by adding affordable housing units in town neighborhoods. Therefore, the substantial justice test would be met. Fourth criteria is that the use not diminish the value of surrounding properties. I think the board would recognize that adding new two-family dwellings on 3 of the lots in longstanding neighborhood on a land yielding a density compatible with that of its immediate abutters and properties across the street in a zone that permits two-family dwellings won't adversely affect or diminish property values. Property values generally are enhanced when new construction appears in existing longstanding neighborhoods. At the end of the presentation, there's a letter to that effect from a real estate professional, which we'll submit for the record. The last criteria, of course, is the hardship criteria, Mr. Chair. Board's well aware of the standard. Unnecessary hardship means owing to special conditions of the property, distinguishing it from others in the area. 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance and specific application of the provision to the property. And 2, the proposed use is a reasonable one. The property has a number of special conditions. Again, it's located in a longstanding, relatively densely developed in-town neighborhood. As I mentioned more than once, the properties across the street and to the rear are compatible in density. The corner lot at 3 Fifth Street has 2 frontages, 2 front yards, 2 side yards, but no rear yard, hence the uniqueness typically found in a corner lot. But even with these differences, given the setback requirements, it's still functional for development in light of its building envelope as compared to the building envelopes on the other 2. The RB district, of course, allows two-family dwellings, but in addition, it allows by conditional use permit multifamily dwellings. So the land use code contemplates relatively high density in the RB district. In fact, in the land use code, it's referenced that the RB district is appropriate for all the residential sections of Nashua surrounding the urban core. These concepts, coupled with the infill development, show its special conditions. In light of these conditions, the provisions in the zoning ordinance preclude this reasonable development because they mandate a density that's not similar to that already in the area and would frustrate a purpose fundamental to the land use code, which is development of infill properties. The use, of course, is a reasonable one because it's a permitted use in the RB district, two-family dwellings. And lastly, I think it's worth noting that about 4 weeks ago, the Board of Aldermen received the 80-page housing report from its independent consultant, identifying the significant housing needs that the city has, anticipated population growth over the next 10 plus years. And in that report, I believe, contemplated investment in the inner city, also contemplated the goals of some more affordable housing opportunities and choices.
Attorney Westgate, I'm afraid your 15 minutes is up. So
appreciate that. I did notice, Mr. Chair, and I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Boras has notified me that she's recusing herself from this case, so Mr. Mancaro will be voting on this case. Does the board have any questions for Attorney Westgate? Mr. Courier.
Yeah, Attorney Westgate, maybe I missed it. I was curious of the minimum land area and how those numbers shake out on the abutting properties, like the map that were provided, which I appreciate, you know, kind of saying 1 family or 2 family or multifamily. I was just wondering, are the numbers calculated out for the minimum land area of those abutting properties that you're citing as this being equivalent to?
They're not shown in the exhibit that we submitted, Mr. Courier. If you take a, maybe we could put back up the GIS extract for a moment. If you take a look at them, we can in effect estimate it pretty readily, I think, by comparing them with what's proposed. So if you can, for example, on Fifth Street, the two-family that's right at the corner is obviously a smaller parcel than any of what we would propose, because if we could even, I know it's hard to show two of the exhibits at once, but if we looked at our subdivision plan at the same time, we'd have to spin it a bit. That's the site plan, but if we go to the subdivision plan too. Yeah, I think Kate, we'd go to the right and there we'd have to spin there and perhaps blow that one up. So if we can kind of remember what the GIS extract was showing, you can see that that corner lot at Fifth Street and Ledge Street is smaller than what we would propose as to the three lots of any of those. If you go down Fifth Street, you're going to notice the same thing in a couple other spots. And maybe now we have a visual, if you will, in our minds of the subdivision plan, but if we take a look back at the GIS extract, now I think we can eyeball it again. So those first two families on Fifth Street, I think, are certainly on a smaller landmass than what's proposed. The one at 4th Fifth Street is probably a bit bigger landmass, but then we go to 8 Fifth Street, another two-family, again, smaller. Same with 12 Fifth Street. On 4th Street, the two families on the top and bottom are certainly a bit larger lots than what we would propose. So if that gives you a sense, I know that if we wanted to take the time, the assessor's cards would give us the acreage data on those lots.
Okay, well, thank you. I was, like I said, I'm here to help. I'd prefer to have the numbers, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's a mixed amount, some greater, some less. The other thing is, I'm just curious, is if there weren't variances sought, what's the development potential of the two lots? Curious what the starting point is.
Sure. Well, so we have 23,200 square feet on 7 lots per acre. If I may get a calculator. We would have 3 and a fraction units on the 0.53 acres under the 7 units per acre density requirement. It's not quite 4. It's a bit under 4.
Okay, thank you. I think that was the only questions I had at the moment.
Are there other board members with questions for Mr. Westgate? Mr. Shaw.
Attorney Westgate, one of your arguments is about infill development of the neighborhood. And I guess what I'd like to understand is why, well, I'm kind of going with an assumption here of the fact that you're coming up short with the 5,200 square foot lot, for that to get your 4th lot. So perhaps for argument's sake, assume the board would be willing to grant the variance for that lot to, but essentially developing the 4 proposed lots with just single family homes. To me, that seems like you're accomplishing the infill development. And I guess I'm not sure why the duplexes is necessary, or at least part of why that argument is necessary there. If you could speak to that a bit.
I think the two thoughts, and they occurred to me when I first looked at this property, and try to develop a sense of logical application. First was the immediate abutting properties are effectively all two families or more, both across the street and to the rear. So it wouldn't be putting two family units on streets on both sides that are one family itself. So it seemed compatible to me that these would be logical two family locations. Secondly, I think the philosophy of the land use code, which I think is playing out a bit further in more detail with the city's initiative of updating its master plan, the consultant's report I mentioned, is to have respect for density and look at density as not a sort of evil thing, but a appropriate thing in the right neighborhoods. I think the consultant's report, for example, contemplates that the city have greater density because right now, I believe the numbers were something like of the residential properties in the city, about 50% of the homes are single family, but they're occupying 60+% of the land area. And that has an affordability factor. And the push for developing in the inner city, investing in it, utilizing compatible properties in the inner city, and allowing the density to yield what's necessary for the population growth is an appropriate approach. I guess you have to discern that from the encouraging infill development concept to come to the conclusion I made.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other board members who would like to ask a question? If not, I do. Attorney Westgate, in your initial talk, you were referring several times to the 6,000 square foot lot size, and you said the 5,200 one was 800 square foot short, but that would be for a single family home, and the ordinance requirement for a duplex for two family is quite a bit larger. How do you reconcile that?
I think strictly speaking, the 6,000 square feet is the minimum lot size under the dimensional table. Yes, the density requirement is separate from the minimum lot size requirement. So instead of the dimensional table having, this is really just a sort of technical point, but instead of the table having minimum lot sizes for different types of uses or different numbers of units on a lot, it has a minimum lot size requirement, 6,000 square feet, but on top of that, a density requirement. It's the density requirement that drives the size of the lot because dependent on the use, not the 6,000 square foot minimum lot size itself. It's perhaps a distinction without a difference, but that's why Mr. Falk's decisions concluded that we needed the density variance. Strictly speaking, we don't need the minimum lot size variance for the two 6,000 square foot proposed duplex lots because we meet that element of the dimensional table. We don't meet the density element, admittedly.
Yeah, okay, but that's not really relevant. Mr. Falk, you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Lionel. Basically, the minimum lot size in the RB zone for a single family home is 6,000 square feet. If you have more than one unit, it would be bumped up to 6,222.8 square feet per unit. So that's why in the advertisement, it indicates 12,444 square feet for the two units per each of those lots. I think the code anticipated a little bit more land area because there's a little bit extra in the way of city services that would have to be provided, water, sewer, open space, parking, usage, things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so am I correct in saying that really the only number we should be looking at is the 12,144 or whatever it was? Because that's what we're being asked to do, and the lots are 50% or less smaller than that.
If I may, Mr. Chair, yes.
Kinda, yes, but, Attorney Westgate, if you want to explain.
No, let me let you speak, Mr. Falk. I'm sorry.
Okay, you can correct me it's your case, not mine, but basically in the RB zone, the two middle lots, so to speak, those lots would meet the minimum lot size dimensions if they wanted to build a single family. The lot on the corner is 800 square feet short of the minimum lot size required to build a single family. That lot needs a variance no matter what, whether it's a single family or 2 or more units. The two middle lots are okay for a single family, but since 2 family units are proposed on each of those 2 lots, those 2 lots would require the 12,444 square feet where the 6,000 is proposed. So it all comes out to the same number overall, but since right now there's 2 existing lots and their request is really to combine them into 1 and then subdivide them into 4, we're kind of looking at the existing conditions and the proposed conditions. So to get where they want to be at, they would have 4 lots. 1 lot would be an existing single family on it that would meet everything. It's not really into play. The 2 middle lots would need 12,444 square feet where they have 6,000. And the corner lot would have 5,200 square feet where 12,444 is required. So no, that's a lot of numbers, a lot of lots, but I hope it kind of made sense.
Yeah, that's what the way I understood it. I was just a little bit puzzled as to why Attorney Westgate was focusing on the 6,000 square foot lot size when that's not what we're being asked to consider.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to indicate, as Mr. Falk just said, that if a lot was under that, the additional lot size variance in and of itself would also be needed. It's only needed on the corner lot, but clearly the density variance is the key matter before you, no question about that.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, just in terms of the numbers, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I look at this as 7 units over 0.53 acres, which we respectfully submit is not incompatible with what's immediately around it. And what's immediately around it are duplexes and a multifamily unit. That's the perspective that we have on the case.
Thank you. Mr. Courier, you have a question.
Yeah, another question for Mr. Westgate. I was just wondering if you could clarify for me the history of the lot or 2 lots. I have to say I was surprised when I turned on the 5th Street and saw, a big open lot. And I'm guessing perhaps there was a single family home there, but I'd rather you tell me. I'd like to know what the history of this lot has been in ownership as well.
I apologize for not knowing its use history. The Forences are new purchases of the property, having done so mid 2020. Timothy and Nicole Forrence are on the Zoom with us, and I'll just defer to them. I don't know if either of you know historically what 3 5th Street had on it.
Unfortunately, this is Tim Forrence. Unfortunately, I'm not.
Your address, please.
Ooh, pardon me. 274 Panema Hill Road, Milford, New Hampshire.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm not totally privy to it. I just know the existing single family home was mother and son. They own both of those lots, and her house, she had a house there. I just don't know if it was a single family or if it was multifamily. I understand the woman on the bottom is from the area and she knows. I mean, I'm from Gate City Fence, so I drove by it 1,000 times if I've driven by it once, but I'm not quite certain.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Would you like me to tell you what it is?
Sure, go ahead. Give your name and everything.
Yep, Carol Landry. I am a member owner of RCL2C Property LLC, and there was a 2-family home on that property in the lot closest to Ledge Street. The mother and father passed away. The son, who owned the single home, decided that he did not want anyone to purchase it, so he tore it down. But there was one two-family home there. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members with questions? Not seeing any. Okay, I will close the public hearing.
Oh,
And
wait, you want to have ask for other folks in favor and against?
Yes, I'm getting this out of order, aren't I? Okay, very good.
No worries.
Yeah, I've written down so much and some of these things I don't look at. Okay, so that was fun. All right, now we have a letter that Ms. Poirier put up on the screen, but I think I probably need to read into the record that was in favor of the request from Maurice Robichaud of Eris Realty. I think because this was not distributed prior, I mean, it was distributed to the board members. Do I need to read this into the record?
I think the board members are in possession of this. It was in our package.
Right. Yeah, I don't know whether it was in the public record. Ms. Poirier, was this included in what's on the website?
Mr. Chair, this is an addition that was made onto the website as soon as I received it. So it is available. I don't know if it was up before or was uploaded today when I received it.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll summarize it for the record, and a copy of the actual letter will be in the record. This is from Maurice Robichaud, who's the broker owner of Eris Realty. And he believes that he says, I'm familiar with Fifth Street and the neighborhood around it. I have just revisited it in analyzing the variance application and the Forence's proposed project. After having done so, I am of the opinion that the granting of the variance and the proposed duplexes will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. In fact, it is my opinion that the 3 new duplex dwellings will enhance the value of surrounding properties. So at this point, I will ask if there's anybody else on the call who would like to speak in favor of this proposal.
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no hands except Carol's holdover hand.
Okay. Lowering the hand. Okay. Okay. At this point, we have a letter, but I believe the author is here to speak. Is there anybody with questions, concern, or opposition?
Yeah. Is it okay to speak now?
Yes. Would you please identify yourself, name and address, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Michael Poulin. My current residence is 4 Hopkins Street in Nashua. And I own 2 properties that are on 4th Street. And a real question I really had is when they develop the properties and so forth, my properties are really not as impacted by the other ones because mine's going to be behind the existing single family. And I just want to make sure that, in the process of that, the development that right now there's chain link fences that separate everybody, that there's going to be some kind of barrier that's going to remain in place in between the properties.
Okay. Mr. Westgate, would you comment to that?
And I'll defer to the Forences to indicate their plans on fencing.
Yes, absolutely. We plan to keep the continuity that's been achieved already, and the means to at the very least make it secure the whole time throughout the contract, throughout the construction, and then I'm sure we're going to beautify it and security, nothing tall, but just what's there now currently is a 4-foot chain link fence, and we'd probably do more of that to continue the separation and to keep the things the way they are.
Okay, that's really all I had for a question. I just wanted to make sure it's not going to be a scenario where kids are and other people are going to go running 3 yards from one property to another, that kind of scenario. Other than that, I'm fine.
Okay. I'm doing things out of order again. Yes, what we need to do is the people with questions, concern, or opposition ask their questions, and then we have the applicant come back and answer them. So is there anybody else present who has questions, concern, or opposition? Carol, please go ahead. Give your name and address, please, for the record.
Hi, Carol Landry, 37 Sagewood Drive, Pelham, New Hampshire. I am the abutter who owns 7 4th Street under RCL2C Properties LLC. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for giving me an opportunity to speak. And I want to share that the plans were not posted until yesterday morning, not giving much opportunity for someone to first school themselves on what the plans were. And I actually asked for a postponement and so that the abutters could all view these plans. With this not being postponed, I disagree with the building of these properties. Number one, it's not in our public interest. We do agree that something could be built there, but not what they're proposing. There is not enough green space around these buildings for the families that they're proposing would live here, especially the house on the corner. It leaves 7 feet behind that home. There's no yard. There's going to be, my iPad's running out here, figures. There's going to be 2 families living in that home with 7 feet on one side of the house, 7 feet on the back side of the house, and 10 feet in the street. Where are these people supposed to put their things? I don't believe that is going to beautify the area when there's no place to put anything for these families to thrive. You know, just recently, without yards for children to play in, they're going to end up in the street. Just recently, there was a Manchester child who was killed because he was in an alleyway trying to play outside of his home. We don't need any more of that in Nashua. If you turn down 3rd Street, you'll always bump into a child because that's where they play. Now, Mr. Westgate speaks of the density of the area and is using our property to show same density. Although I don't believe he understands that our property, while it's 6 units, they're 1-bedroom units, only allowing 2 people in each unit. That's not density. That is quite relaxed, quite honestly. If you look at these maps, green space is identified in every one of these units. If you look at the plan that they're proposing, there is no green space left. There's 20 feet behind 2 of the buildings and 7 feet grossly encroaching on the owners of the property on Ledge and 4th. Now, the plans that were just flashed up a few minutes ago show that the roof line will go to the back or towards 4th Street. I don't know if that's going to cause problems for us for drainage or whatever, but I can imagine that if there's only 7 feet between the house on the corner and the house on 4th Street, that runoff is going right into their backyard. Now, again, we're not opposed to something being built. We're opposed to everything that they're proposing. We believe that only, if they were to split the lot into 3 versus 4 and allow for 2 family homes, that would be reasonable. That allows enough green space around these homes for children to thrive.
Thank you. And I note that you sent a letter to the board with pretty much the same sentiments. So thank you for speaking. Is there anybody else who would like to speak with questions, concern, or opposition?
If I may speak.
You will have
She has 55 seconds.
55 seconds. Okay, go ahead.
Well, my only point is, because the plans were posted so late, I don't believe there's opportunity for the abutters to even know what is going on. And I think Ms. Poirier can speak to that, because she's the one that sent them to me just yesterday morning. I tried looking at them earlier. You know, we are not zoning board educated. So for us to be able to even speak to the neighbors, we needed to have something to work with. Even the plans that are being showed right now, I see decks on these plans that I didn't see in what I was able to pull off the site yesterday morning. But what Mr. Westgate showed, there are now decks on the back, which looks like it's eating up even more green space. So I think it just makes it tougher.
All right, thank you. Mr. Curry, did you have a comment?
Well, it was a question just for Ms. Landry, or perhaps maybe Ms. Poirier. So let me direct it to Ms. Poirier. I mean, these plans that us members have were in our package. I was just wondering, here we are in COVID and people can't get into City Hall readily. When would the general public, when were they available for others to see? And I'm also wondering, like, the variance sign that gets put out there, how long has that been up?
Okay, thank you. I first want to preface this with an apology to Ms. Landry. Typically, the scans of the applications are posted exactly at the same time as I put those packets in the mail. I do recall that it was a very hectic day, so I think I was interrupted in the middle. And I will say that nobody besides Miss Landry reached out in that time, and as soon as I was aware, I sent it immediately to her, and I posted it everywhere and got it to everyone. Our department is closed to the public, unfortunately, so essentially people have been reaching out to me, and I'm sending them the whole PDF or showing them to the website. These signs were placed on site on Thursday. They have to be out 5 days beforehand as per I think it's Land Use Code 190-126.
Okay, well, thank you. I just wanted to get the details on that. Thank you for that information. Kate, Ms. Poirier.
And Ms. Poirier, are all those plans that were presented, are they now available in the Agenda Center on the city website for the zoning board? Okay, we have a question on that. Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak with questions, concern, or opposition?
In just real quick comment, in Kate's defense, we have numerous land use boards and we have a massive amount of cases, and we do our best to try to get things posted online as soon as we can, the signs put out. And sometimes, not to blame anybody, because I don't want to do that, sometimes our website is not working, or it's down, or we put things on and we look a day later and it's not there. There's been some little glitches with our website in the internet system, but I'm not to blame anybody, but just in Kate's defense, we do I think a really pretty good job of trying to get everything out as fast as we can when we can. So
And thank you. I want to follow that up with, we have been having a lot of website issues, and I've been in frequent contact with IT. So if you see something that isn't up, sometimes there's a really good reason, and I'm talking with IT about it.
Okay.
Kate's on top of everything. She's the master in our department of getting things on. So,
Mr. Shaw.
I'd also like to just add a comment that to Ms. Landry. I mean, I appreciate your concern, but I'll also let you know this board whether we like it or not, is used to receiving actually many pieces of documents for applications literally at the time the applicant is presenting their case. So it's very common. It's something that we don't have an exact requirement of any sort for additional documentation to be received. The board can consider whether or not to not go forward with the case if we think the information is not, digestible or whatever. But that does happen, and it's kind of it's something like that, but there is something that we don't always get all the information ahead of time ourselves either. It just seems sure of the way cases can go and materials can be.
Mr. Falk.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. That reminds me of something. For any case that we have before any of our land use boards, we have legal requirements to post the agenda on site with the little signs, also the abutter notifications and the ad in the newspaper. That's only our real own sole legal responsibility to do things. When we put things on the web, it's really just as a courtesy so people can see them, but all the legal requirements have been met with this. It's basically the sign, the newspaper ad, and the abutter notifications, and all of those all went out in time. And as Mr. Shaw said, sometimes, we try to send the package out a week in advance, but sometimes we'll get a map or a drawing or a picture 4 days in advance or the day before the meeting, and we'll forward it to the board. I think the board members will all agree that happens quite a bit. So
I appreciate that. I'm still, it's not every day I'm an abutter to a situation that a variance is being requested.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak with questions, concern, or opposition? If not, Attorney Westgate, you have 5 minutes as a rebuttal, and then Ms. Landry, if you wish to speak again for 5 minutes, you may.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Poirier, would it be possible to put up the GIS map of the area while I speak of Fifth Street, if you can? I'll get right into it, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate Mr. and Mrs. Landry's letter, Mrs. Landry's comments tonight, as well as Mr. Poulin's, and frankly, their generational, I suspect, investment in this area. I do have a few thoughts regarding Mrs. Landry's comments. Ms. Poirier, I was wondering if you could actually pull up, I meant the Google Earth view of it, if that was possible, if you could. Thank you. I think it's important to note that in the concern about open space that Mrs. Landry, I think, fundamentally focused on, really is first and foremost to be looked at in the context of the land use code and table 16.3. There we go. The dimensional requirements of the land use code call for a 35% open space or non-impervious surface area in any lot in the RB district. We're not seeking a variance from that. We need to meet that requirement. The design of the units has to be such that it does meet those requirements when the driveway is contemplated as well. Obviously, when the ordinance was adopted and the 35% minimum open space percentage became part of the dimensional matrix, all the factors that one would contemplate for open space would have had to have been thought through, including use of a yard, compatibility with the nature of the use, that sort of thing. We're in an inner city neighborhood, and as you can very well see from this GIS depiction, there's not a lot of open space in a number of the properties nearby. There are very tight setbacks in a number of them, especially along Fifth Street, as you can see in the first couple of properties, and then the fourth one down the street. People will make a choice as to whether they want to live in this kind of unit or not. And that choice may involve family decisions, but other issues as well: proximity to downtown, affordability, the nature of a neighborhood, the nature of people who live in the neighborhood, who might be friends, relatives, all those factors work into a decision. But another big factor is what's nearby. And this neighborhood has nice city and public resources in its immediate vicinity. With the playgrounds, the ball fields, as you can see, the Boys and Girls Club not far away. These are opportunities for that frankly enhance the properties in this neighborhood, and they're opportunities to better the options that people have who want to live in this particular part of town. They're good opportunities. So it's not simply governed by a sort of aspirational goal of open space. What we got to focus on is the regulation, and the regulation mandates a 35% open space requirement, and we're not seeking any relief from that whatsoever. It's also, again, important to note that the code contemplates the encouragement of infill development, as I mentioned. Obviously, it contemplates that, recognizing the other requirements of the ordinance, including the open space requirement. It wouldn't encourage infill development if it felt the open space requirement wasn't adequate. That wouldn't be logical. The two concepts in the code would cancel each other out, if you will, or contradict each other. Increasing housing opportunities in the city is a real challenge. And this is the type of property that can meet the challenge. And I think the housing initiative the city's undertaken is very instructive in that regard. The Florences are familiar with this neighborhood as well. Their family has been the owners and operators of Gate City Fence for decades. I think from the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. I'll let Tim Florence correct me if I was otherwise mistaken. Their property is right at the easterly end, just about, if you will, at Ledge Street. So they are familiar with the neighborhood. They have pride and ties to it as well, and they want to see good things done in it. And they're trying to make that investment for these good things.
Thank you.
We would submit that these factors support the findings of spirit and intent and substantial justice and the other components, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Westgate. Ms. Landry, you have 5 minutes to final speak. You need to unmute yourself, please.
I myself did try to calculate the green space, and in every situation, it comes out short unless there's a variance. I don't believe the variance is necessary because the houses as outlined are just, there's no room for them. Again, I'm not opposed for something to go there, but I believe 3 duplexes in that small area is not conducive to the community that our house has been in. You know, as the Florences have been in the community for many years, so hasn't the building that I own. It has been in our family for over 50 years. First owned by my folks and now me. And we need to really think about the children. I myself think about those children going to the school and going to the Boys and Girls Club. And I don't understand why we would try to cram so many homes in such a small space, not giving these children opportunity to play within their own yards. You cannot consider 7 feet behind a house and 7 feet on the side of a house a yard. It's, you know, where do you put your picnic table? Where do you put your grill? Where do you put the trash cans? There's just doesn't need to be so many. It can be just as comfortable with 2 duplexes versus 3. Again, I am more concerned about my neighbor who's being encroached on by only allowing a 7-foot barrier between the back of that house on the corner and the other house on the corner. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would you put a house so close? And now if you're going to try to put a deck back there, you leave no opportunity. So again, we are opposed to this current plan and the variance, and we hope that the Florences will go back and come up with a better plan so that we all can be happy by it.
Mr. Curry, did you have a question for Ms. Landry?
Me? No.
Your hand was raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a holdover. Let me put it down.
Okay.
Lower hand.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the public hearing. And we will open the public meeting. And again, Mr. Mancaro will be voting as an alternate. So, Mr. Courier, your comments?
Me first. Okay.
Everybody gets a turn.
I guess I've always placed value on the minimum land area requirement. I think that a great deal of thought went into that, and there's merit to the numbers that are in our code book. So I am thinking of the history of this lot. I'm wondering, if this proposal, is a high density proposal. I'll start with that, and I'm struggling to find concurrence with that. I certainly read that 80-page. I didn't read the whole 80-page report. There was a lot of detail of that in the Telegraph, and but I don't think that upends our current code book. And I think that when perhaps higher densities are adjudicated at the Board of Aldermen, other things that aren't mentioned in that 80-page report come out, like services and schools and those other costs. And those things you need to balance is why we have the numbers we do. So I'm not finding support, for the square feet required. I'd like to say that I didn't connect the dots of the Florences owning that long-standing business, and their good community. It's a great business in the community, and I'm sure their heart is in the right place. And I'd like to throw that out, but I'm struggling with the density of this proposal, and I'm not finding support for that at this time. And I'm looking forward to being dissuaded or hearing my other colleagues on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Courier. Mr. Shaw, your comments.
I'm not in support of it either. I think, Mr. Courier already kind of alluded to it, but I appreciate Mr. Westgate's, noting that report and all, but quite frankly, going to higher density in the RB zone, as a matter of course, would really require some action by the Board of Aldermen to, determine what that should be. And it's not certainly this board's purview to do that. We certainly look at things contextually for localized areas, and I appreciate some of the arguments being made that there's some high density immediately around this property or these properties and the proposal. However, what I also see, just zooming out a little bit more, is I see really quite a varied usage, density of that neighborhood. And that's generally what I believe we rely on more so than what's necessarily immediately and only immediately adjacent to a given property. So I don't see that if there was only multifamilies and these were going to be the only properties required to be single family for some, multi-block stretch, I think there's a very different argument to be made. But I see it right now as there's single families throughout the neighboring streets and the neighborhood. Certainly there's heavier density as well, but I don't see where there's justification for this property or these properties to go to those levels of density. There's, I think, reasonable opportunity to develop into, and I noted and I kind of alluded to it, I think 4 single family homes with 1 area variance for the 1 lot is a reasonable and minor encroachment to the density. But anything beyond that, to me, just feels like overburdening of this area. And I don't see that there's sufficient argument that says they should go this dense. So I don't find support for it. I'll still, remain interested in what my colleagues also have to say, but that's where I stand.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Mancara.
So I've actually been leaning in favor of the application, although there are some things I struggle with. So just kind of picking up on Mr. Shaw's comments, I looked at the lot size. I walked the whole area. I do agree with the applicant's position that what's proposed is consistent with the density of the area. I think that's definitely true. When I look at the lots, and if you look at it even in our packet, you can see several of the lots are dimensions of 40 by 80. So they're 3,200 square foot lots, most of which contain a two-family dwelling. Then you have double lots, which are slightly larger than what's proposed, 6,400 square feet. And those also typically have duplexes on them. So the densities that are proposed, I think, are very consistent with what's in the area. Do we need more housing? Yes. So I do check that box. And would new investment in the area have a positive impact on property values? Yes, I think that's true. So picking up on Mr. Shaw's comments, I would have a little trouble supporting the 800 square foot, the request for a variance of 800 square feet to create a fourth lot. I think I could certainly support that. Kind of again, to my point, that would create lots that are larger than that are in most of the neighborhood. And that would allow, with that variance, the ability to create 3 additional single family homes. So 4 total, which is certainly a reasonable development of the property. So, I have no trouble getting there. Even though I feel that the overall density proposed is consistent with the neighborhood, I don't know that consistency with the neighborhood is really sufficient to say that, we should set aside the way the area is currently zoned. Whether the RB zoning is appropriate for this area versus RC is a policy decision. It's not, I don't think my decision to make. So that's where I struggle with getting to that level of density that's proposed. Even though it's consistent with the area, even though I think it's a good plan, I've got a hard time with that piece of it. I don't have much of a struggle with the variance to create the 4 lots.
Thank you, Mr. McCarra. Mr. Boucher.
I was going to be by myself on this one. I did the same thing Mr. Mancara did. I didn't walk everything, but I did a lot of research and looking at the lot sizes because it became more interesting as I looked at it, and concerning at first. In summary, I do think it is consistent with the area. I support the 4 lots, and this is why. Again, I guess, I don't know. I think Mr. Attorney Westgate made good arguments. I agree with him. It made more sense to me as I listened more and more to that. I understand the concerns for the open space and the setbacks. I think what we know, but folks don't know is that when we meet the dimensional requirements on lots, even if this lot was the lots didn't change and the person on the corner wanted to put his house 7 feet from the house on Ledge Street, he could do that, right? Because that's in the building lot. So I do understand the view of it or the vision that it may be impacting. But again, I go back to looking at the single family lots, as Mr. McCarra said, the 3,200 square foot lots, the 2 families on that. I don't think there's a net harm to that. I know it's quite of a initial impact, but I think as a whole, I don't see more harm being done than good being done, I guess what I'm saying with this application. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I had it all in my mind. So in most part, I agree with what Mr. McCara said. I would support the lot on the corner for the 5,200 square feet. I think at this point, this is a little bit higher density area. I think that, like I do agree with Mr. Westgate. I think we've seen other properties like this where people will choose to whether to live in an environment like this or choose that house. And they're going to choose it for specific reasons. It's maybe near ballparks. Maybe this is what they want. Maybe this is where family is. So I don't see it as a detractor. I think it's going to improve the neighborhood and I think provide, needed housing. So with that, I'm going to support the application.
Thank you, Mr. Boucher. I've been struggling with this application. What's being asked is density that's double what the ordinance calls for. More than double in some cases. Actually, more than double in all of the cases. And although I recognize that the greater neighborhood has a mix of small and larger lots with lots of multifamily housing, it feels to me that so many duplexes, the 3 duplexes plus the single family house on those 2 lots subdivided is a bit much altogether. And I just don't find support for it. So would somebody like to make a motion?
Actually, could we maybe at least a little more in the discussion part of things? Because
yeah, sure.
And I realize that I might have alluded to it, but I don't think I stated it clearly. So at this point, I am in support of the first variance, the request. I think it's the first one, or minimum lot area. So I am in support of that request, and I'm not in support of the other 3 requests for the density variances. So that would be where, so I would be looking to consider motions, one addressing the area for the lot itself, and then maybe one other motion to cover the 3 density ones. And that's kind of where I'm at as far as just even from a logistical perspective. I mean, the other thing I'd like to just kind of go to, and Mr. Lionel, you had got me thinking about this a little bit, and some of the other discussion, I think, with Mr. Mankara about the lot size and the 5,200 square feet. And I'm not sure this changes anything in terms of what I'd be willing to support. And it gets into even more of kind of getting one of those areas of considering, like asking the applicant to possibly, go back and relook at things. But I do think that something like even considering two lots of larger dimension with the remaining, 19,000 square feet approximately, I think, or no, 17,000, I guess it would be closer to. If that were only divided into 2 lots and those had 2 duplexes or something like that, that's the kind of thing I feel like starts to be a little bit different compromise in terms of the density and the usage. So I'm not trying to redesign this, but I'm also, you got me thinking about, there's already this kind of heavy density requirement request for the middle 2 lots. And then the corner lot has an even greater density usage because we're being asked to go with something that by right, even for a single family lot, would be smaller. So to me, and this kind of gets a little bit to your point, Mr. Lionel, it just feels like it's trying to put just too much in there with what's available. So I'm not sure what I would support. I'd be interested in that, but I just wanted to have that a little bit of discussion and thought out there. And I know sometimes we find ourselves in these positions where we do even, basically open things back up to talk to the applicant about, would they, be wanting to go back and look at their proposals before this board necessarily acts. So a couple of things for the board to think about.
We can certainly do that. We can reopen the public hearing and ask the applicants to talk to us. And Mr. Falk, please help us out here.
Okay. The applicant submitted an application along with the plans that you all have in your package that have been discussed tonight. So the board really should vote on what's been submitted. If they want to, I'm just throwing out some ideas. If they want to withdraw this and come back with another plan, a revised plan, I think the applicant has heard your concerns about the density and, the middle two lots being a lot, a lot of density right there. That's an option for them. I'm not sure what they want to do, but I think you should really vote on what's in front of you. I can see probably several different iterations of how this property could be developed. If you take the property as a whole, because right now there's one single family house on that property and it's almost it's a little over half an acre. There's a lot of options for what could be done here. And they have proposed one plan showing what they want to do. There's probably other different ideas. So I think the board really should vote on what's in front of them.
Well, we have a little bit of, first of all, there is no current 5,200 square foot lot. There's this big lot at 3 Fifth Street. And I assume a subdivision plan is being submitted to the planning board, or would be submitted to the planning board to do that, because we don't do subdivision here. Mr. Courier, you have some experience with this?
Well, I just wanted to join the conversation a little about what Mr. Shaw was saying and Mr. Falk. And I'm feeling more like what Mr. Falk is saying is that we have a specific plan in front of us. But I wanted to say to Mr. Shaw, I concur with your assessment that a 5,200 square foot corner lot, which is currently proposed, that in and of itself versus the 6,000 square feet, I think what you were saying, that might be in concert of the neighborhood, and I don't disagree. I agree with that. However, that particular variance before us tonight is part of the whole big package here. And while I don't find that one component outside of what the neighborhood is, and we should kind of say buy into that component, I see it kind of tied to the whole plan in front of us. And so that's why I'm feeling more like Mr. Falk is suggesting to just, hey, we have a plan and take a vote on that. That's just, so I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, well, we can certainly do that. Other comments? Okay, so we have one variance of one kind and 3 variances of another kind. And so I propose that we have separate vote on variance 1, and then we'll vote on variances 2, 3, and 4 together. Does that seem reasonable to the rest of the board members? Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion on variance 1? Mr. Shaw. Normally I'm doing some too, but I don't get to do that today.
Oh, you still can, but it's just even that much harder to conduct the meetings.
And Mr. Courier is clerk. He doesn't tend to. He can't really do motions and clerk at the same time. So
no problem.
Please.
Go ahead. I'd like to make a motion on behalf of owners Kenneth, Timothy, Jeffrey, and Kevin Ferns. Address 3 and 9 5th Street. And I'm just going to be doing one variance here. I guess first to finish that is sheet 87, lots 309 and 310, requesting the following variance from Land Use Code section 190-16, table 16-3. Proposed lot 87-309-1 for minimum lot area, 6,000 square feet required, 5,200 square feet proposed. This is in the RB zone. The applicant has proposed this as part of, again, a subdivision of 2 existing lots into 4 individual lots. The total area is such that it's possible to essentially, again, divide this out for 3 minimum 6,000 square feet lots, while 1 lot would remain at 5,200 square feet. And so it's reasonable considering lot sizes of some of the other surrounding parcels. Also, the original development of some of this area was smaller lots. And so this was a modest reduction in that single lot would give the property owners the opportunity for, again, 4 separate lots to come out of this. And that's essentially the special condition of the property that would require that smaller lot. It's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. There's been testimony regarding the overall proposal that it would benefit surrounding parcel property values. I think this specific subdivision and smaller lot, there's not significant evidence that it would necessarily certainly impact property values necessarily one way or the other, but I don't think it would negatively impact. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served. So I move to approve this single area variance.
Do we have a second? Mr. Mancara, second. Thank you. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none. All those, let's see, roll call vote. Okay, Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
I vote I'm sorry, denial of variance number 1.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Mancara, how do you vote?
Mr. Ankara votes in favor.
And I vote in favor of variance number 1. So it passes 4-1. Mr. Courier dissented. So now we go to variances 2, 3, and 4. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'm willing to make a motion. I'm not sure I have a sense of where the board is at on this. So
that's the interesting thing, because there does not seem to be a sense. So Mr. Courier, do you have a comment?
Well, I'd be willing to make a motion. I would just then need some time to type it after I make it. So I mean, I offer that out. But if Shaw wants to go with it, I let him go with it. Whatever.
If it's more, Mr. Courier, if you're making a motion to not support the variances, that would be what I would be doing. So there's no need for you to do that. I can do that. I just didn't know if somebody wanted to make a motion to support.
Oh no, I was going to be making a motion to not support.
Okay, so I can certainly do that.
Okay.
Well, let me go ahead and we can see where the vote leads us, right?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion on behalf of owners Kenneth, Timothy, Jeffrey, and Kevin Florence. Address is 3 and 9 5th Street. This is sheet 87 lots 309 and 310, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3. And there will be 3 variances that are going to be part of this same motion. The first one being for minimum land area for a proposed 2-family dwelling where 12,444 square feet are proposed, 5,200 square feet is, the 12,444 square feet is required, 5,200 square feet is proposed. Secondly, for proposed lot 87-309-2, And I'm sorry, the first one was for lot 87309-1. Just the way that was written, I didn't catch that when I said it. So for the second one, it's again, lot 87309-2, minimum land area for proposed two-family dwelling, 12,444 square feet required, 6,000 square feet proposed. And thirdly, for proposed lot 87-309-3, minimum land area for a proposed two-family dwelling, 12,444 square feet required, 6,000 square feet is proposed. And this is all part of combining these two lots, 87-309 and 87-310, and re-subdividing into 4 lots, with lot 87-310 remaining as a conforming single-family detached dwelling. Again, this is in the RB zone. The proposal is that the area variance is needed for the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of these properties. It's not the board's belief that some other means feasible can still be sought to reasonably use this property, not being single-family homes would be a reasonable and consistent use, certainly with the RB zone. And there is a mix of single-family and multifamily dwellings in this area. It would not be within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. There's been testimony that would positively affect surrounding property values. And I will note, at least to some extent, I think new construction typically will, but that testimony we had also, though, did not address the density of the property, which I think can also potentially not be helpful for property values. So it's not clear whether there will be a significant effect on property values one way or the other. It would be contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would not be served. And for those reasons, I move to deny these area variances.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Do I have a second? Mr. Courier seconds the motion to deny. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none. Okay, so we are voting on the motion is to deny variances 2, 3, and 4. Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion to deny.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Boucher votes not in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Mankara, how do you vote?
Mr. Mankara votes in favor.
And I vote in favor of the motion to deny. So the motion to deny passes 4-1. Mr. Westgate, for instance, I'm sorry that some of your applications did not pass. The one for minimum lot area of the first lot did pass. You have 30 days to appeal. You can contact Mr. Falk at the planning department to discuss that. You are certainly welcome to submit new plans. You've heard the board discuss what we would be comfortable with. That's, no, I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time and the board's graciousness and courtesy. Thank you very much.
Okay. We have an agenda. We were sent an agenda for the next meeting, which is December 4th, I think. Is that right?
December 8th.
Oh, December 8th, yes. Has everybody had a chance to look at it and determine whether there's regional impact? I didn't see any regional impact.
No.
I saw none.
Mr.
No.
Courier finds no regional impact.
Okay,
So I think
Yeah.
I've seen all 5 folks here stating there's no regional impact. So I'm gonna check the box that there's no regional impact on the December 8th agenda.
okay, very good. We have minutes for the November 10th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any corrections or edits that need to be made? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the November 10th minutes? Mr. Shaw,
Move to approve the minutes of the November 10th meeting of the zoning board.
and I'll second it, get my name in there. Mr. Shaw, any discussion on the motion? Okay. Mr. Shaw, how do you vote?
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
And we're going to have Ms. Boris vote on this one. Ms. Boris, how do you vote?
Ms. Boris is in favor.
And I also vote in favor. So that's 5-1, 5-0, and the minutes are accepted. We also have a draft calendar for 2021. Have people had a chance to look at that? Any comments? Mr. Fogg.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The February 23rd meeting, well, we have a holiday on February 15th and the 22nd, which are 2 Mondays in a row. And normally on the 22nd, we would have had a Historic District Commission meeting. So we're going to have that on Tuesday, and the zoning board meeting would be on Wednesday, the 24th. So it would be a day later. So both the HDC and the zoning board meetings would be 1 day shifted ahead. So that's the only change that I had. I think that hadn't been put in the draft schedule yet.
Okay.
So if everybody's okay with meeting on a Wednesday, it'd just be that one time.
That amendment came out after the packets were sent.
Yep.
Okay. We don't need to, I don't think we need to vote on that.
Right.
Okay.
No, well, they should be read at 2 successive meetings. This one and the next one, and then they should be fine for the following year. So
Okay, so
if everybody's okay with it, we'll just mention it next week. I'll get you a revised copy and we can vote on it the following meeting. And that way, it's voted on in 2 successive meetings. That might be something in the bylaws, I'm not sure.
Okay. Somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
8:28.
Do I have a second? Okay. Mr. Courier, how do you vote?
Ms. Courier votes in favor of adjournment.
Mr. Shaw,
Mr. Shaw votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher,
Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Mancara,
Mr. McCara votes in favor.
and I vote in favor. So that's unanimous in favor of adjournment, and it's 8:28.